The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 16. The hortator wandered through the morning hold, wrestling with the lessons he had learned. They were slippery in his mind. He could not always keep the words straight and knew that this was a danger. He wandered to find Vivec, his lord and master, the glory of the image of Veloth, and found him of all places in the temple of false thinking. There, clockwork shears were taking off Vivec's hair. A beggar king had brought his loom, and was making of the hair an incomplete map of adulthood and death. Nerevar said, "Why are you doing this, my lord?" Vivec said, "To make room for the fire." And the hortator could see that Vivec was out of sorts, though not because of the impending new power to come. The golden warrior poet had been exercising his water face as well, learned from the dregs before he was born. Nerevar said, "Is this to keep you from the fire?" Vivec said, "It is so that I may see with truth. It and my place here at the altar of Padhome, in the house of false thinking, serve so that I may see beyond my own secrets. The water face cannot lie. It comes from the ocean, which is too busy to think, much less lie. Moving water resembles truth by its trembling." Nerevar said, "I am afraid to become slipshod in my thinking." Vivec said, "Reach heaven by violence, then." So, to quiet his mind, the hortator chose from the fight racks an axe. He named it and moved on to the first moon. There, Nerevar was greeted by the Parliament of Craters, who knew him by title and resented his presence. For he was to be a ruling king of Earth, and this was the lunar realm. They shifted around him in a pattern of entrapment. The moons does not recognize crowns or scepters, they said, nor the representatives of the kingdoms below, lion or serpent or mathematician. We are the graves of those that have migrated and become ancient countries. We seek no queens or thrones. Your appearance is decidedly solar, which is to say a library of stolen ideas. We are neither tear nor sorrow. Our revolution succeeded in the manner that it was written. You are the hortator and unwelcome here. And so Nerevar carved at the grave ghosts until he was out of breath, and their parliament could make no new laws. He said, "I am not of the slaves that perish." Of the members of parliament, only a few survived the hortator's attack. A surviving crater said, "Appropriation is nothing new. Everything happens of itself. This motif is by no means unassociated with hero myths. You have not acted with the creative impulse. You fall below the weight of destiny. We are graves but not coffins. Know the difference. You have only dug more and supplied no ghosts to reside within. Central to your claim is the predominance of frail events. To be judged by the earth is to sit on a throne of wonder why. Damage us more, and you will find naught but the absence of our dead." The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Sermon 17. I am an atlas of smoke. With this, Vivec become greater than he had been. These were the days of Resdania, when Keimer and Dwemer lived under the wise and benevolent rule of the ALMSIVI and their champion, the hortator. Seek me without effort, for I take many shapes. The hortator was still trying to subdue the heavens with an axe. He was thrown out of the library of the sun by the power of Magnus. Vivec found him in a grape field outside of the swamps of the Deshan Plain. They walked for a span in silence, for Nerevar had been humbled, and Vivec still had mercy in his hand. Soon they were walking across the eastern sea to the land of snakes and snow demons. Vivec wanted to show the Hortator the fighting styles of foreign tongues. They learned the idiom stroke from the pillow book of the Zitchi king. It is shaped like the inside of this page. The Zitchi serpents vowed to have their vengeance on the west at least 3 times. They walked farther and saw the spiked waters at the edge of the map. Here the spirit of limitation gifted them with a spoke and bade them find the rest of the wheel. The Hortator said, "The edge of the world is made of swords." Vivec corrected him. "They are the bottom row of the world's teeth." They walked to the north to the Elder Wood and found nothing but frozen bearded kings. They came to the west where the black men dwelt. For a year they studied under their sword saints, and then for another Vivec taught them the virtue of the little reward. Vivec chose a king for a wife, and made another race of monsters, which ended up destroying the West completely. To a warrior chief, Vivec said, "We must not act and speak as if asleep." Nerevar wondered if there was anything to learn in the south, but Vivec remained silent and only led them back to Red Mountain. "Here," Vivec said, "is the last of the last. Within it, the Sharmat waits." But they both knew that the time was not ready to contest the Sharmat, and so they engaged in combat with each other. Vivec marked the Hortator in this way for all of the Velothi to see. He sealed the wound with the blessing of Ayam Azura. At the end of the battle, the Hortator found that he had gathered 7 more spokes. He attempted to attach them and form a staff, but Vivec would not let him, saying, "It is not the time for that." Nerevar said, "Where did I find these?" Vivec said that they had collected them from around the world, though some had come invisibly. "I am the wheel," he said, and took that shape. Before the emptiness at the center could live too long, Nerevar put in the spokes. The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Sermon 18. Now Vivec felt that he had taught the Hortator as much as he could before the war with the Dwemer came. The warrior poet decided he had to begin his Book of Hours at that point, because the world was about to bend with its age. Vivec entered the morning hold and announced to Ayam that he was going to fight 9 monsters that had escaped the Muatra. "I will return," he said, "to deal the last blow to the Grand Architect of the Dwemer." Ayam said, "Out of 9 you will find only 8. Though they be mighty, the last is already destroyed by your decision to create the Book of Hours." Vivec understood that Ayam meant himself. "Why," she asked, "are you in doubt?" Vivec knew that his doubt made him the sword of the Triune, and so he did not feel shame or fear. Instead, he explained, and these are the words. "Can a member of the Invisible Gate become so archaic that its successor is not so much an improvement of the exact model, but rather a related model that is just needed more because of the currency of the world's condition? As the mother, you do not have to worry unless things in the future are so strange that even Set cannot understand. Neither does the executioner or the fool, but I am neither. These ideals are not going to change in nature, even though they may change in representation. But even in the West, the Rainmaker vanishes. No one needs him anymore. Can one oust the model not because the model is set according to an ideal, but because it is tied to an ever-changing unconscious mortal agenda. This was what was said to Iam when Vivec was whole. The wise shall not mistake this. Iam said, "This is why you were born of Anechiman's wife, and destined to merge with the simulacrum of your mother, guild and blended in all the arts of the star-wounded East, under water and in fire, and in metal and in ash, 6 times the wise, to become the union of male and female, the magic hermaphrodite, the martial axiom, the sex death of language, and unique in all the middle world." Vivec knew then why he would record his Book of Hours. This sermon is forbidden. In this world and others 18 less 1, the victor is the magical disc hurled to reach heaven by violence. This sermon is untrue. The ending of the world is ALMSIVI. Sermon 19. Vivec put on his armor and stepped into a non-spatial space, filling to capacity with mortal interaction and information. A canvas less cartography of every single mind it has ever known. An event that had developed some semblance of a divine spark. He said, "From here I shall launch my attack on the 8 monsters." Vivec then saw the moths that would come from the starry heart, bringing with them dust more horrible than the ash of Red Mountain. He saw the twin head of a ruling king who had no equivalent, and 8 imperfections wrapped into precious stones, set into a crown that looked like shackles, which he understood to be the twin crowns of the 2-headed king, and a river that fed into the mouth of the 2-headed king because he contained multitudes. Vivec then built the provisional house at the center of the secret door. From here, he could watch the age to come. Of the house is written, "Cornerstone 1 has a finger buried under, pointing through, dirt low in the ground. North cannot be guessed, and yet it is spirit-free. Cornerstone 2 has a tongue, and even dust can be talkative. Listen and you will see the love the ancient libraries need. Cornerstone 3 has a bit of string, shaped like your favorite color. A girl remembers who left it there, but she is afraid to dig it out and see what it is attached to. Cornerstone 4 has 9 bones, removed carefully from a black cat, arranged in the fashion of this word, protecting us from our enemies. Your house is safe now, so why is it? Your house is safe now, so why is it? The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Sermon 20. The first monster was actually 2, having been born twice like his father Vivec. He was not the mightiest of the 8 to escape Muatra, but his actions were the most worrisome. He was known as Moon Axle, and he harvested the leftover foibles of nature. This he did twice, as was said, and the second harvest always brought ruin or unwritten law. His aspect was faceted, like a polyhedron. No perils are mentioned in the finding of Moon Axle, but it was known that he was immune to spears. So Vivec had to use the sword not held against him. Before he took issue with the monster, the warrior poet asked, "How came you to be immune to spears?" To which Moon Axle replied, "Mine is a dual nature and protean. I am in fact made of many straight lines, though none last too long. In this way, I have learned to ignore all true segments. Luckily, the sword not held was curved, and therefore could cut into Moon Axel. And before the sun was up, he was bleeding from many wounds. Vivec did not slay him outright, for to do so would keep the foibles of nature within him, and not back where they belonged. Soon Vivec had traced geography right again, and Moon Axel was ready to be slain. Vivec rose up in his giant form to be terrible to look upon. He reached into the west and pulled out a canyon, holding it like a horn. He reached east and ate a handful of Nyx hounds. Blowing their spirits through the canyon made a terrible wail, not unlike an unsolved woman. He said, "Let this overtake you." And Moon Axel was overtaken by the curvatures of stolen souls. They wrapped about the monster like resin until finally he could not move, nor could his dual nature. Vivec said, "Now you are solved," and pierced his child with Moatra. Moon Axel had been reduced to something static and therefore shattered. The lines of Moon Axel were collected by Velovi philosophers and taken into caves. There, and for a year, Vivec taught the philosophers how to turn the lines of his son into the spokes of mystery wheels. This was the birth of the first whirling school. Before, there had only been the surface fort of fire. Vivec looked at his first wheeling students and observed. Alike, the egg-layered universe in this morbid possession of free distant coverage, soul-wrecked and alive like my name is alive. In this cloister you have discovered one walking path, healed like a sword but more coarsened. So edged it is that it has to be whispered to keep the tongue from bleeding, where its signs evacuate their former meanings. Like empires that tarry too long. The sword is an estrangement from statesmanship. Look on the estimable lines of my son, now crafted starwise, his every limb equidistant from the center. Is he solved? Because I will it so. There cannot be a second stage. Think on the theory that my existence promulgates the 5 elements. And alike the egg-layered universe, I am cause for great density. Here is a fort that can break the wagon's axle. Here is another that can soar. The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Sermon 21. The scripture of the wheel, first. The spokes are the 8 components of chaos, as yet solidified by the law of time. Static change, if you will. Something the lizard gods refer to as the striking. That is the reptile wheel, coiled potential, ever preamble to the never action. Second, they are the lent bones of the Aedra, the 8 gift limbs to Siphisit. The wet earth of the new star, our home. Outside them is the Albis, and not within. Like most things inexplicable, it is a circle. Circles are confused serpents, striking and never given leave to bite. The Aedra would have you believe different, but they were givers before liars. Lies have turned them into biters. Their teeth are the proselytizers. To convert is to place oneself in the mouth of falsehood. Even to propitiate is to be swallowed. Third, the enlightened are those uneaten by the world. Fourth, the spaces between the gift limbs number 16. The signal shapes of the demon princedoms. It is the key and the lock. Ceres and Manticore. Fifth, look at the majesty sideways, and all you'll see is the tower, which our ancestors made idols from. Look at its center, and all you'll see is the begotten whole. Second serpent, womb ready for the right reaching, exact and without enchantment. Sixth, the heart of the second serpent holds the secret triangular gate. Seventh, look at the secret triangular gate sideways, and you see the secret tower. Eighth, the secret tower within the tower is the shape of the only name of God, I. The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Sermon 22. Then Vivec left the first whirling school and went back to the space that was not a space. From the provisional house, he looked into the middle world to find the second monster, which was called the Treasure Wood Sword. Within years of the pomegranate banquet, it had become a lessening tune to the lower Velofi houses. They preached of its power. The Treasure Wood Sword, splinter scintilla of the high and glorious. He who wields it becomes self-known. The warrior poet appeared as a visitation in the ancestor alcove of House Mora, whose rose-worn prince of garlands was a hero against the northern demons. Vivec congregated with the bones. He said, "A scavenger cannot acquire a silk sash and expect to discover the greater systems of its predecessor. Perfect happiness is embraced only by the weeping. Give me back, and do so freely, what is barren of my marriage, and I will not erase you from the fort realm of God. Your line has a notable enchantress that my sister Iam is fond of, and from her murky wisdom alone do I condescend to ask." A bone walker emerged from a wall. It had 3 precious stones set in its lower jaw, a magical practice of old. One was opal, the color of opal. The bone walker bowed to the prince of the middle air and said, "The Treasure Wood Sword will not leave our house." Bargains were made with the Black Hand's Mafala, the greater shade. Vivec kissed the first precious stone and said, "Animal picture. Rude walker, go back to the lamp that stays lit in water, and store no more messages of useless noise. Down." He kissed the second precious stone and said, "Proud residue, soon dispersed, serve no guarantees made in my fore-image, and demand nothing of its underskin. I am master evermore. Down." He kissed the opal and said, "Down I take thee." And then Vivec withdrew into the hidden places and found the darkest mothers of the Morak tongue, taking them all to wife and filling them with undusted loyalty that tasted of summer salt. They became as black queens, screaming live with 100 murderous sons, 1,000 murderous arms, and 100,000 murderous hands. One vast moving event of thrusting, kill laughter in alleys, palaces, workshops, cities, and secret halls. Their movements among the holdings of the Ra'athim were as rippled endings, heaving between times, with all fates leading to swallowed knives. Murder as moaning, God's holy rape erasure of wet death. The king of assassins presented to Vivec the Treasure Wood Sword. "My lord," the king of assassins said, "the prince of House Mora is now fond of you as well. I placed him in the corner of Dagon. His eyes I set into a fire prayer for the wicked. His mouth I stuffed with birds." The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Sermon 23. The Scripture of the Sword, first. The sword, treated as a delicate meal, is the symbolic collage. It serves you well in the first half of life. Name one dynasty that knows this not. Second, the unity of my approach is understood by the immobile warrior. True eyes are acquired. Rejoice as my own subjects and realms. I build for you a city of swords, by which I mean laws that cut the people who live there into better shapes. Third, girls burn their dresses on my arrival if I am armored. They crawl to me as bled pilgrims. Minor spirits die without trace. Follow me of all the ALMSIVI if you are to mark your days with killing. I, Altadun, the third law of weaponry. Fourth, the immobile warrior is never fatigued. He cuts sleep holes in the middle of a battle to regain his strength. Fifth, instinct is not reflex action, but mini miracles held in reserve. I am the welfare that decides which warrior will emerge. Beg not for luck, serve me to win. Sixth, the span of the apparently inactivated is your love of the absolute. The birth of God from the Nechaman's wife is the abortion of kindness from love. Seventh, the true sword is able to cut chains of generations, which is to say, the creation myths of your enemies. Look on me as the exiled garden. All else is uncut weed. Eighth, I give you an ancient road tempered by the second walking way. Your hands must be huge to wield any sword the size of an ancient road, and yet he who is of right stature may irritate the sun with only a stick. The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Sermon 24. Then Vivec left the House of Assassins and went back to the space that was not a space. From the provisional house, he lucked into the middle world to find the third monster, called Horde Mountain. It was made of modular warriors, running free but spaced according to pattern, and from the highest warrior, who could cut clouds, they spread out beneath him like a tree. A skirt whose bottom circle was an army that ran through the ash. Vivec admired the cone shape of his child and remembered with the joy the whirlwind of fighting styles that instructed him during the days before life. Vivec moved into Veleth saying, "Onus." But before he could get within sword span of the monster, a trio of lower houses had trapped Horde Mountain in a net of doubtful doctrine. When they saw their lord, the Velothi cheered. "We are happy to serve you and win," they said. Vivec smiled at those brave souls around him and summoned celebration demons to cleave unto the victors. There was a great display of love and duty around the netted monster, and Vivec was at the center with a headdress made of mating bones. He laughed and told mystical jokes, and made the heads of the three houses merry and become a new order. "You shall forever be now my buoyant armatures," he said. Then Vivec pierced Horde Mountain with Muatra, and made of it all a big bag of bones. At the touch of his right hand, the net became right scripture, and he threw it all northeasterly. The contents spread out like sugar glows, and Vivec and the buoyant armatures ran under it laughing. Finally, the bones of Horde Mountain landed, and became the foundation stones for the City of Swords, which Vivec named after his own sigil, and the net fell across it all and between, or became as bridges between bones. And since its segments had been touched by his holy wisdom, they had become the most perfect of all city streets in the known world. gods. Throngs of Velothi came to the new city, and Iam and Set gave it their blessing. The streets were filled with laughter and love and the strength of tree-shaped enemy children. Iam said, "To my sister brother's city I give the holy protection of House Induril, whose powers and thrones know no equal under heaven, wherefrom came the Hortator." Set said, "To my sister brother's city I give safe passage through the dark corners still left of Molak Baal, and I give it this spell as well, So'of Asil, which is my name to the mighty. It will protect the lost unless their flight is on purpose, and fill all the roads and alleys with the mystery paths of civilization, and give the city a mind, and make of it a conduit to the full concentrate of the ALMSIVI. Thus was founded the city of Vivec in the days of Resdania." The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Sermon 25. The scripture of the city. All cities are born of solid light. Such is my city, his city. But then the light subsides, revealing the bright and terrible angel of Veleth. He is in his pre-chimerical form, demonic Vec, gaunt and pale and beautiful, skin stretched painfully thin on bird's bones. Feathered serpents encircling his arms. His wings are spread out behind him, their red and yellow ends like razors in the sun. The wispy mass of his fire hair floats as if under water, milky in the nimbus of light that crowns his head. His presence is undeniable, the awe too much to bear. This is God's city, different from others. Cities from foreign countries put their denizens to sleep and walk to the star-wounded east to pay homage to me, the capital of the northern men, crusty with eons' ice, bows before Vivec the city, me it together. Self-fought streets rush through tunnel blood. I have rebuilt myself. Hyper-eyed signposts along my traffic arm, soon to be an inner sea. My body is crawling, with all gathered to see me rising up like a monolithic instrument of pleasure. My spine is the main road to the city that I am. Countless transactions are taking place in veins and catwalks, and the roaming, as they roam over and through and add to me. There are temples erected along the hollow of my skull, and I will ever wear them as a crown. Walk across the lips of God. They add new doors to me, and I become effortlessly transimmortal with the comings and goings, and the stride heat of the market where I am traded for. Yell of the children, hear them play, scoffed at, amused, desired, paid for in native coin, new minted, with my face on one side and my city body on the other. I stir with each new window. Soon I am a million-eyed insect dreaming. Red sparking war trumpets sound like cattle in the ribcage of shuffling transit. The heretics are destroyed on the plaza knees. I flood over into the hills, houses rising like a rash, and I never scratch. Cities are the antidotes to hunting. I raise lanterns to light my hollows, lend wax to the thousands the candlesticks that bear my name again and again. The name innumerable, shutting in, mantra and priest, God city, filling every corner with the naming name. Wheeled, circling, running river, language giggling with footfalls mating, selling, stealing, searching, and worry not ye who walk with me. This is the flowering scheme of the Albis. This is the promise of the sage. Egg, image, man, God, city, State, I serve and am served. I am made of wire and string and mortar, and I exceed my own precedent. World without am. The ending of the words is ALMSIVI.